Welcome to the Remodeling Reimagined Podcast, the podcast that gives you an inside look at the remodeling industry from award-winning designers. On this week's podcast, Bob Buchan sat down with Cindy Cipriani to discuss the questions that homeowners should ask their contractors. And without further ado, here is your host, Bob Buchan.
Hey everyone, I'm Bob with Cipriani Remodeling Solutions. Welcome to our 15th episode of Remodeling Reimagined. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing to get updates on our home remodeling content. And today I'm joined by Cindy Cipriani. Hey Cindy.
Hi.
Hey. So it's great to have you here today, and we're going to have an interesting topic today, because today I'm sure that we've all heard nightmare stories about homeowners who wound up chained to the wrong contractor, and we don't want you to be one of them. So after helping homeowners for the past 40 years with their remodeling projects, we've seen and experienced just about everything, and we've got some helpful questions that would help you to be able to find the right contractor for you for your remodeling project. And so Cindy, really, what is the first question a homeowner should be asking to find out if they've got the right contractor?
Well, I think the first question they should be asking is about references. How reliable is this contractor? How long have they been in business? And can I have a list of people that I could actually go talk to that you've worked with before? Not only talk to them, but maybe go out and visit their jobs, because you want your job, after it's finished, to be in good repair for many, many years. So warranty issues are a really big thing. If you have a problem a year down the road or 10 years down the road, is that contractor going to be there and answer your call and come out and help you repair or solve a problem? So talking to past clients of that contractor is so important, because any contractor can tell you that they're great. They can tell you that they stick to schedules. They can tell you that they have wonderful clients. But the clients will take the veil off, and they'll tell you what that experience was, not only during the project, but in the planning stages, and then also when they're in their warranty period.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So you just mentioned a couple of things with references. It seems like a good way to do it would be to get people across the whole spectrum of when someone used that contract, right? From the very beginning to even, would you say, years afterwards?
Yes, and some people say, well, if I ask for references, they're just going to give me people that like them. And that's true. If you only get 3 references, they could be a friend, a relative, and a neighbor, for all you know. So you want to ask for people who did you work with maybe 5 years ago that I could call them? Who are you currently working with that I could actually go out and see a job in progress? Mm-hmm. That's a great one, because when you go out to visit a job, the homeowner is going to tell you what's happening and how they're enjoying their experience and any problems that they're having.
I know you've seen this too. I've seen this a couple times too. And I've been to a friend's house that was getting remodeling done, and I think that their kids they would be afraid to have their kids run around the house, because there was nails and roofing material and stuff all outside. So just the neatness of the project shows a lot about how a contractor operates.
Yes, and if you're considering a contractor that is a professional builder, they should be running multiple projects at one time. So you could ask to see where they are and then drive by those sites and just see how neat it is. Your home is going to look like their home. And you want the dumpster to be neat, you want the outside appearance, you want your landscaping to be protected, you want no intrusion on your neighbors. So all of those things are really important to consider, and you can get a lot of information just by driving by.
Sure, and I've even seen, like, on a couple of projects that I've been on for Cipriani Remodeling Solutions, when I've gone inside and looked at what's going on to photograph them, I was amazed at how clean the project is during construction. In some cases, it's cleaner during construction than my house is when I'm living in it. So the guys do a fantastic job with keeping the workspace really well organized.
Yeah, that's another thing, to ask questions of those homeowners as to what their experience was living through the project, because we know that dust is a huge consideration with indoor air quality. And if your contractor is just, throwing up a couple sheets of paper or sheets of plastic, it's really not going to be protecting your air system, and the flow of that air. So I was just talking to someone yesterday, as a matter of fact, and they said their biggest thing was they don't want dust in their house. And how do we keep that from happening? She's a concert pianist. She has a baby grand piano that, she wants to make sure is free of dust. So there's all those different considerations, and even people who have little children. Like you said, you have to be so vigilant about having everything safe for the homeowner.
Right. Yeah. Doing remodeling is a lot different than new home construction, where you've got guys who don't care about the way the site's left, versus remodeling. You have to be totally concerned with that and maintain your site. So awesome.
Yes.
So, hey, so I'm sure a lot of people are concerned about the cost of the project. What kind of questions should people be asking about pricing?
Well, remodeling pricing is so difficult because every project is customized to the home and to the homeowner. In 40 years, we've never done the exact same project twice. And that's because everyone has different tastes, everyone has a different budget. You could take the exact same kitchen in two houses next door to each other, and they're going to have different pricing because one may be, they want custom cabinetry and they want a sub-zero refrigerator, and the other one wants something very basic, and same kitchen, totally different renovation. So the question is, okay, how do I know that I'm getting the right price? Well, you should talk to several different contractors. However, really realize that they're guesstimating when they throw out a number. It should be more scientific than that. So they should be asking you the specifics of what you want in your renovation, the level of materials, the type of appliances that you want, time frame. There's so many things that go into a renovation, and they should have a long list of questions to ask you even at that first appointment, so that they could get a better guesstimate in mind as to how much that should cost. And some people think that there should be some type of square footage number, and I have to debunk that as a misnomer, because you can't really do remodeling by the square foot. Again, because every remodel is different, every house is different. So if you go to work and somebody says, oh, I did my addition project and it cost X amount of money, that doesn't mean that that's what yours is going to cost, because we're tying into your home, and we have to take into the age of the house, the exact design of what we're doing, all of the materials in it. So again, square footage pricing is only for development pricing. If you go to a new home development and they're building 3 models and they're building 600 of them, they can figure out exactly what the square footage price would be because they're purchasing all the same materials.
Right.
In remodeling, it just doesn't work that way.
Right. Yeah, and I think I've seen a lot of people seem to be a little wary about telling you what their budget's going to be because they're afraid that you're just going to inflate the price to meet their budget. But is that really the way it works?
No. It's very much like going to buy a house with a realtor. The first thing the realtor is going to ask you is, how much do you want to spend? Because that's going to depend on which developments or which areas of town they're going to show you. You don't want to waste your time looking at $600,000 houses if your budget is $300,000.
Right.
So it's the same thing with remodeling. We want to get your budget so that we can give you the most that we can for that amount. And oftentimes, people's budgets are not enough to get the dream that they want. However, when you work with a professional who's been doing this for a long time, we know how to make things look beautiful and maybe not have extremely expensive materials. So instead of real marble, you could get ceramic tile that looks like marble. There's just so many details that we can put into a project that will give you the look that you want without having to spend more. So if you don't give us a budget, I'm going to be honest, I'm a designer. I will design away and I will come up with something absolutely gorgeous. And then when you see the price, you're like, oh, that's not what I was thinking.
Right.
So
I guess the reverse could happen too, right? They could be afraid of giving you what they really want to get. So they give you maybe a maple shade or like if they were looking for a home, that would be like going to a realtor and saying that you want to live in Maple Shade or Cinnaminson, and they show you the homes, but you really wanted to live in Morristown or Haddonfield, right? So if you give you a low budget, you'll get a plan or that's for that budget, but maybe you really wanted something that was higher end. So really the budget, you design something up to the budget. You're not inflating prices to get there. You're giving them everything that they need to get to that budget. Okay.
And if you give us a range, you say, this is the minimum, this is the maximum that I want to spend, then we can come up with ideas within that range and show you the differences. And that's really helpful because you'll be able to see where those dollars are going. And another source that we recommend a lot is Remodeling Magazine has a cost versus value report every year. And that's exactly what they do. They look at what things actually cost in our area, but they take a typical kitchen and they'll show it to you in 3 different ways to show you how the budget changes.
Very good. And Cindy's husband, Jay Cipriani, is the owner of the company. And we got a couple tips from Jay here, but here's the first one. So talking about pricing. So Jay's just saying that when you have a high, a medium, and a low quote, a lot of people figure that the right choice is the middle price. But the right price has nothing to do with that. It really has everything to do with using the right products in your home installed the right way. And you really need to get detailed plans and specifications on your estimates to be able to compare apples to apples between contractors to be able to evaluate pricing accurately. It's not where the price falls in a spectrum. It's making sure you're getting the right products at the right, for your project.
Yes.
Awesome. I'm sorry, it's good. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying, if you just go for a middle price, you don't know what that includes. And again, when you're starting these processes, you haven't picked anything out yet. So everyone's kind of guessing what you're going to be putting into that project. If you go to the lowest person, they could just be giving you a low price to get the job, and then the way and then adding on as the job goes on. We've heard about change orders and people adding things as they go on. You've watched, HGTV shows where they break down a wall and all of a sudden there's heating ducts and pipes in there, and they say, oh, we didn't know that was there. This is going to cost you, $10,000 more. Well, that's not how a professional remodeling company should work. All of those details should be worked out ahead of time. And so if you have a budget and you choose a contractor because of that, it meets that budget, who knows if they've checked everything? And then where are you supposed to get extra money in the middle of a project?
Right. That's a great point, because that leads into our next point then too. Like, how do you know if you're getting everything done correctly? Really, and the way that I guess you do that is by what's in your estimate, what's in your contract. So what should be people asking about what's in their contract?
Well, contracts are a legal document, and it should have every detail of what you're getting, so that there aren't any misinformation between the two. I've heard a lot of people say that they were disappointed when they started seeing the materials come in, and they said, well, gee, that's not the sink I wanted, or gee, I thought I was getting something different for my countertops. And I actually had my best friend, this is a great story, moved into a condo, and she was renovating it. And she called me up very excited because she had found a contractor. Now she doesn't live near me, or I would have done it myself. But
Okay.
anyway, so she found a contractor, and she said, oh, the price looks really good. Can you look over this for me? So I'm looking at it, and it just said 18 cabinets. I think it was like 42 square feet of countertop. There was nothing spelled out. She was just excited at the price at the bottom. And I said to her, well, what kind of cabinets are these? She said, what do you mean? I said, well, who's the manufacturer? And what's the door style and the color? And are you getting any pullouts in there? Or there was nothing specified. I said, what kind of countertop is it? Is it quartz? Is it granite? Is it laminate? It just says countertop. So she said, oh my goodness, like I would have just jumped and hired this person, and I wouldn't have even known what I was getting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's tough because sometimes you're making an emotional decision, right? You're so excited about getting something done that you're not stepping back and looking at the logic of what you're actually getting, and that's where a contract comes in.
Yes, and I want to say one other thing about pricing is that if you're doing a kitchen, if you're doing your bathroom, how often do you do that?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe once every 20 years, 30 years. So sometimes the reason estimates go up is because when you actually go out and shop, you want something that you're going to love for the next 20 or 30 years. And at the budget discussion, you may say to yourself, oh yeah, I'll just get something, less expensive. But then you fall in love with something, and you're like, you know what? It's worth it to spend that little extra now, so that every time I walk in that room, I love that for the next 20 or 30 years. So again, you're not going to know that up front. It's a process, and you need somebody to walk you through this process step by step, so that if you do spend a little bit more than you wanted to, you're never going to regret it.
Mm-hmm. Good. Yeah, and that leads into Jay's next tip. We're talking about contracts, and he's just saying that contracts are worth the work. Nobody likes the process of coming up with a thorough, detailed contract. Like that last homeowner you just described, they fell in love with the emotion of just thinking that they were getting a kitchen. So you may not like that process, but Jay says, let me be crystal clear about this. Avoid the temptation to bypass this important step. It's so critical to make sure you get that done, to make sure that you get everything in writing so that you know what you're getting.
Yes, and there has to be legal things in the contract. Every contractor needs to be registered. The registration number needs to be in there. They need to have a physical address. We see so many times when people just have a business name, a phone number, and nice guy, you trust them, but there's no physical address. So where are you going to track this person down if something goes wrong? So even on their trucks, your registration number needs to be on your trucks. It needs to be on your estimates. There's a lot of legalities that go into remodeling because we're trying to protect the homeowner. And these are things that all need to be done. It takes us here at Cipriani, it takes us probably about a week after everything is chosen to actually put an agreement together because it's so detailed. and then it's reviewed many times to make sure that everything is in there. So it is a process, but it really is worth it, because then when your project is being put together, there's no questions, there's no arguments, everybody gets what they expected, and it actually turns out better than they expected, and that's what we want.
Good. So far we've talked about references, we've talked about pricing, we talked about making sure you're getting everything in writing. So what kind of questions can homeowners ask to gauge the contractor's ability to be able to do their work?
A great question is to ask the contractor, when was the last time you went for some continuing education? And the reason we say that is because building science is always changing, always getting better. And if you're not keeping up on things, then you may not be using the latest technologies. You may not know the proper way of, let's say, air circulation in a home, or dust protection, or installation techniques that save time and money. So there's so many things that anyone should be really up on, the latest thing. So if you ask the contractor that and they look at you kind of weird, maybe they don't have the knowledge that you're looking for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's some probably a couple other things too, right? Besides continuing education, like there's a lot of things that contractors need to have in order to really show that they're a professional in the business. Like, what would you say about how long somebody's been in business?
Well, that's really interesting too, because being in this business for so long, we've seen so many people who kind of misrepresent how long they're in business. They could be in business for 40 years, but they've had 5 different businesses. So they may be very good craftsmen, but not a good business person. And so the business goes bankrupt, and then they just open up in another name. So that's an interesting thing too. You have to find out and research how long has this business actually been operating, and how long has the owner actually had this particular business. So that happens a lot. The average remodeling company is about 5 years they last. And that's again because a lot of times the craftsmen start the business, but they really don't know how to charge or what to charge in order to stay in business, in order to be around for you in the long run, so that they can have that flexibility to come back to you and address a warranty issue if there is one.
Good. And I guess what about licenses, insurance, things like that? Like we've heard some horror stories about contractors who don't have that stuff.
Yes, insurance is so important, licensing, because if you have someone in your home and they get hurt in your home, they can come after you, and they can come after your homeowner's insurance if they are not properly insured. And the other thing is too, you want to hire contractors who have high quality installers. The people that will be in your home is really important, that they're trustworthy, that they're being paid a fair wage for the amount of experience and expertise that they have, that these are, just people that you would want living with you for the next few months.
Yeah, a lot of people don't really consider that, do they, Cindy? They don't consider or think about the experience that they're going to have with the people that are going to be in their home. They just get excited about the idea of getting something done, but they don't really think about what's this experience going to be like.
Right, because if you have pets, you have children, you have special needs, someone with special needs in your home, you have your own schedules. And now with a lot of people working at home, that's another thing that we take into consideration is, will the noise be distracting to someone who's working from home? So all of those things should be talked about beforehand so that you have a smooth experience.
Yeah, and just one funny, maybe you want to tell this, the one funny side story that I think is hilarious about with one of our project managers, Jim, how, you get to be in somebody's home for so long, they start feeling like you're part of their family, right?
Yes, we actually had a client that they did a very large renovation, and he was at their home for probably about 6 months. And when I went back to take some after pictures and to see how everything was going after the project was finished, I walked in the kitchen and I was startled because there was a cardboard cutout, life size, of Jim standing in their kitchen. And they said, well, we miss him coming by every day, so we have him here in our kitchen.
Right, that's a good experience, right? They liked the guy so much that they wanted him to continue to be there. So that's awesome.
Yes. And it became kind of a joke. They would put him in different rooms, and then they finally gave the cardboard cutout to us, and we had him in the office moving around him.
So he periodically freaks us out with wherever he's showing up.
Yes.
So what about permits, Cindy? I know that's a very important part of the job. What should homeowners be thinking about that?
Sometimes people don't want to get permits because they think that their taxes are going to go up, or they're going to be responsible for some added cost. But the permit is there again to protect the consumer, because the permit opens up a way for the inspectors from the municipality to come out and inspect the work. This is a third party that can look at it and make sure it's done right. And if you have plumbing going on, electrical going on, you don't want to flood in your house. You don't want your house to burn down. You want this done properly. And how, as a homeowner, are you going to know that? I'm not an electrician. I'm not a plumber. If I looked at pipes or electricity, I wouldn't know if it was done right. So I want that third party to come in and inspect it and say, yes, this is approved. Also, when you go to sell your home, the realtor is going to ask you for if you got permits.
Right.
And if you didn't, it's a problem. Sometimes people have done their basements, remodeled their basements, and they did it themselves. They didn't get any permits. And they actually have to rip it out in order to sell their home. So it's very important. Permits are not that expensive, but it really is that added layer of protection for the homeowner. If you get someone who comes in and says, oh, we don't need a permit, run the other direction.
Right. And God forbid if something did happen, like you mentioned, there was remodeling done and a flood happened, or a pipe burst or something like that. Your insurance may not cover it if you didn't have it inspected either, right? I mean, if you...
That's right. Now there are some cases where you don't need a permit. If you're just pulling and replace, as we call it, nothing's moving, maybe you just want new cabinets and countertops and all of your electric is up to code, you're just changing out a sink or something like that, then you don't need permits. But if you're doing a remodel, then most of the time you do.
Good point. All right. Well, I'm sure homeowners want to know how long the remodeling project's going to take. So what kind of questions could they be asking about that?
Well, again, you should ask the previous clients how long their project took, and if they were on the job every day or if they came here and there and everywhere. Sometimes they'll start a job, people disappear, then they show up a week later. So having a schedule as part of your agreement is very important. Actually, legally in the agreement, you are supposed to have a start and completion time actually putting in, in the contract, so that you know how long that's going to take.
Yeah, and why does that happen? Why do people not show up, on a project for weeks at a time, perhaps?
Well, sometimes remodelers, like I said before, are not great business people, and they don't know how to spread the money around. So they might be working on your project and take a chunk of money, but they need your money to finish someone else's project. And then they need to go get another project in order to get a deposit to finish your project. And you wouldn't know that. That's kind of all behind the scenes. But you know, if they have one homeowner complaining that you haven't showed up in 3 days, then they send somebody over there to keep them quiet, and then somebody else has to wait. So you want to find out how the contractor works. How many project managers do they have? Or are they just a one, you know, is the person who's selling you the job also the person who's going to be doing the work?
Right.
In that case, what happens if that person gets sick or has a family emergency or something, you know, happens? Then your project is just going to be sitting there waiting. So those are all considerations to look at when you're talking about hiring someone and knowing how long your project is going to take.
Yeah, and that can be a dangerous situation where you're taking people's money on a deposit and using it to fund the project that you're working on, right? And that's what we were talking about before, about how long somebody's been in business. Because if they continually are reopening, chances are when they shut down, they didn't pay all their vendors, they might have paid all their employees, and so they can't get credit from their people anymore. So now they have to pay for everything cash up front. And that's what's your deposit's funding that, right? So you got to be careful with that.
Yes, you really do. You know, we've been in business for so long. We don't need your money to buy the materials. With us, we take a very, very small first payment, sometimes 2% of a large project. And, you know, we're trusting that those homeowners are going to be paying us as they go through the project. So we order everything up front because we have good credit. We can do that.
Yeah, and so it's important for the homeowner to be in control of a lot of things, right? Like the timetable, like knowing when things are going to be happening, and to be in control of the finances too. It's you don't want to be putting large deposits up front for work that hasn't even happened yet.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, even professionals such as my husband and I have gotten caught in that. You know, we had a bad experience years ago with a landscaper that we knew and we trusted, and we gave quite a bit of money up front because he was starting this landscaping business, and ended up losing the entire amount. Even all the materials, they came to our house one day and took everything. So it was a very bad experience. It was one that we say, man, here we are telling everybody how not to get in this situation, and we got in this situation. So, you know, never again. We learned our lesson.
Right. Well, and that's a great story, Cindy, because that just shows the heart that you have for, you know, in running this business, is that you don't want people to experience the heartache of dealing with a bad contractor, because you know personally what it's like, and it's a horrible feeling. It's a horrible experience, and we never want anybody to go through that. That's why we're out here giving you all this information. Even if you don't go with us, you know, listen to at least what we're saying so you can avoid the problems down the road.
Yeah, because there's other costs involved besides money. And some of those costs are very personal. It's your stress level, you know, your health. If you're upset that things aren't going well, and the aggravation that you have to go through. I mean, during that period, I thought my husband was going to have a heart attack, you know, because it was just so stressful. And, you know, those are things you have to take into consideration. Remodeling should be fun. It should be a good experience. It should be exciting.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't have to worry about being ripped off, or not getting the right materials, or, you know, having a leaky roof, you know, after they leave. Those are all things that doing it right and doing it up front and paying what you should pay for a project is way more valuable than saving what you think you're saving up front.
Good. And I guess homeowners also would want to know, like, who is doing the work? Who's going to be doing the work from your company? Or are you going to be bringing other people in? How do they find out about that?
Well, they can ask whether they have trade partners that work with them, ask how big their crew is, ask them about what their experiences are or their background is. So just, you know, the more questions you ask, the more information you're going to have, and the more secure you're going to feel. If you start asking a lot of questions and they start hedging, they don't really want to answer those questions, then something's off.
Yeah. And I guess it's good, like the way Cipriani runs their projects is we have dedicated project managers, so that there's never a chance that somebody is going to not show up on their project for weeks at a time while they're off doing something else, right? So it's nice to know that it's a combination of people who are in your company and then other professionals that we're bringing in from outside the company to complete some of the specialty work.
Yeah, I was at a home yesterday, as a matter of fact, for someone that I saw 6 years ago. And at that time, they had quite a big exterior renovation that they wanted to do, and also 2 bathrooms. And didn't hear from them, didn't know what happened, but apparently the gentleman decided to be the general contractor himself and hire everyone to do this project himself. He said he thought he would save a lot of money that way, and he said, I'm calling you now because we want to do our kitchen, and I will never be a GC to a project again. And I said, why? He said, well, it took twice as long as he thought, cost twice as much as he thought. He said the problems and the aggravation of getting people to come back and finish their work, to do it right, to handle, everything. So 3 times within, the couple hours that I was there, he said, you have project managers, right? You have someone who's going to manage this whole thing, right? Because I am not going to do it.
Good. Right. And that leads into Jay's last tip here. And he's just saying that a good contractor is the key to a successful renovation. There's no 2 ways about it. The contractor that you hire has the power to make or break the outcome of your renovation. It's worth every bit of time and effort it takes to find the right person, because a bad contractor, on the other hand, can cost you a lot of time and a lot of money, and sometimes it just doesn't work out well, right? So you want to avoid all that. And that's what we're here trying to help you do with these questions that you can be asking to your potential contractor. And remember, ultimately, it's you that's in control. If you're not getting the answers that you like, or you don't feel comfortable with the answers you're getting, then just keep looking. You don't have to go with that person, the first person you meet, right? You don't want to make the mistake that's going to cost you a lot of time and a lot of heartache. So with that, we're going to wrap it up for this episode of Remodeling Reimagined. And just remember, if you like the content, just hit the like button below and don't forget to subscribe. And we're going to look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Remodeling Reimagined. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Once again, thanks for tuning in, everyone. And if you're looking to start a remodeling project, you can learn more about our design process at CiprianiRemodelingSolutions.com. And you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.